East meets West today as we take a look at the Marvel R. It is not a superhero movie or a Marvel franchise. It is a car with British heritage, but with a new Chinese owner. We've seen a couple of them over the last couple of years, but this is going to be their latest and greatest. So stay tuned to find out for all you need to know.
Before we get stuck into the details on batteries and performance, let's have a sneak peek at what the Marvel R actually looks like. First thing to say is that MG's parent company SAIC Motors will have, in general, two versions of this car, one for the Chinese market and another for global markets. But today, East is meeting West and we're looking at the car that will be hitting global markets. Within that, the Marvel R will come in three different versions: comfort, luxury and performance. Well, on site, the Marvel R is a lot sharper than the electric MGs that we've become accustomed to seeing on UK roads of late. At the nose, the Marvel is sleeker with no obvious grille handed down from a combustion counterpart. The bonnet is curved and is quite clearly separated from the front by a singular light bar running across the centre that joins narrow, piercing headlights. From the side, provided you don't underspec the car in terms of rim diameter, the Marvel has that typical crossover SUV styling that is becoming, let's face it, all too familiar these days. There are two creases running fore to aft, the most prominent running just above the centre line of the wheel arches under the window and bulging as it rises over the rear wheel. It compresses the profile of the window at the C-pillar, giving a sleeker, less boxy look compared to some of its rivals. At the rear, we're seeing the very fashionable light bar again, connecting either side of the vehicle with those sleeker light profiles. The rear overhang is lifted, same goes for the tailgate, which may hamper your view out the back a little. A third light is suspended from a small spoiler projecting from the rear roofline.
On the inside, we're getting a plusher interior than we might expect from the MG here. It's dominated by a center console that features a huge touchscreen, navigation dial, and a couple of buttons. The three-spoke steering wheel has a welcoming smattering of old-school buttons as well. There's a lot of soft touch materials in darker shades of grey, black, and a few touches of silver and chrome. You get a more traditional sunroof as opposed to a panoramic roof. In the back, it's a lot more leather and comfortable materials. Stitching and cushioned patterns give the seats a more interesting look, and you get a slightly airier feel from the sunroof stretching back beyond the front seats. So that's the aesthetics and the design of the Marvel R, covered in brief, but let's now move on to the performance and stick around to the end when Blake and I take a more analytical look at the Marvel.
So that's enough ogling of the Marvel R. How's it going to perform on the road? Well, we're skipping straight to the all-wheel drive tri-motor version that's going to get you from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles per hour in 4.9 seconds. And you're only taking 1.9 seconds to get to 50 kilometers an hour, which is the speed bracket that we're going to use a lot more frequently. So to do that, we've got 288 PS and 665 Newton meters torque from the three motors combined. That's one 52 kilowatt motor and two 80 kilowatt motors. Interestingly, the Marvel has a two-speed transmission. The car will shift into second gear at higher speeds for greater efficiency on motorways and highways. It's a nice touch from MG and reminds us of the setup in the likes of the Porsche Taycan.
Well, let's look at the dimensions of the new Marvel now and see what sort of space you get for your money. So we're not talking about a gigantic SUV here, thankfully, but it is a sizable car and it uses its space quite cleverly for an SUV. You have 357-litre boot, which if you fold the seats down, turns into 1,396 litres. Now, that 357 litres isn't hugely impressive for the likes of the Nissan Leaf, has 435 litres. But the Marvel does have a fruit or a frunk, I don't know. In the front storage area, it's 150 litres, but just keep in mind the performance model with that extra motor doesn't have it. Overall, the car is 4.7 metres long and has ground clearance of 132 millimetres. So, just in case some of the buyers of this car decide to do the school run through the nearby fields. And it can even tow up to 750 kgs if you need that extra bit of space for a trailer. So if you're enjoying this show, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and leave a comment. That's the best way you can support us and it's completely free.
So let's get on to the stuff all us EV nerds love and what you've been waiting for: batteries, range and charging. We'll start with the battery and move forward from there. You've got a 70 kilowatt hour battery, 65 of which is usable. So it's quite a reasonable size for all but the most extreme scenarios. With an unladen weight a smidge under 2 tons, it should be able to get some good range. Thankfully, we haven't been treated to the woefully optimistic NEDC range figures and have a little more dependable WLTP figure, which comes in at 402 kilometers or 370 kilometers for the performance. We leave it up to you to decide whether or not that'll do. But as EV drivers know that the WLTP figure isn't representative of every scenario. We reckon that the Marvel Ore could challenge 500 kilometers in city driving with some nice balmy weather. Throw her onto the motorway at 130 kilometers per hour in winter, and we might see that drop into the mid 200s. But in general, it would be safe to say that you'll get in and around 350 kilometers out of the Marvel Ore.
So once you've clocked up a few miles and you need to charge, what's the Marvel Ore's offering? You get 16 pouch cells and a 65 kilowatt usable battery that'll hoover up 11 kilowatts on 3-phase AC. Now, most homes have around 7 kilowatts, but it's nice to know that it's there for when you get some of those destination chargers. On DC, you'll have a reasonable performance from the MG. The goalposts have shifted a lot in the last year, especially with the likes of the EV6 and the Ioniq 5 pushing well past 200 kilowatts on DC. So the MG's 90 kilowatt charging on DC is not that impressive, but is it acceptable? Let us know what you think in the comments. So that's our first look at the Marvel Ore. Let's put down the spec sheet. Let's take a bigger picture view. We're back in the studio. Thank you for joining us. Blake, what do you make of the Marvel Ore?
I think this is a really promising vehicle. And I'm, at the moment, I haven't been inside it. We haven't got enough reviews yet or been into the car, but, we have to trust that the quality is there. And we've seen, and this is what I'm really, really happy about, is Eastern manufacturers are really, really coming on board now, and they're hitting European and US markets with good reputations. We've seen it from Toyota for decades, and then, the last couple of decades, Hyundai and Kia. But now we're getting the likes of NIO coming in. And this Marvel Ore as well, the MG cars we've seen. So it's a really exciting time, and it's also a shot across the bow to the traditional manufacturers in Europe and the US. The competition is not just Volkswagen versus BMW anymore. There's a lot out there. So I'm really excited. I'm going to reserve judgment on the car until I actually get inside it and drive it, but I think it's really, really promising. Some really good specs at these prices. But Derek, that's enough from me. What do you make of it?
Competition, number one, like you said, Blake, the choice in the marketplace, it's all going to make a huge difference to people. And some people just want to know the stats and the figures, and whatever badge is on the front of it, they don't mind. So whether it's an MG and whether it's NIO, whether it's a brand you've never heard of, if the battery is the size that they accept, if the quality of car is good enough, they're going to sell. So that brand loyalty and the traditional, it has to be a VW or it has to be an Audi, that's all starting to fade away with these brands coming in that are offering great size batteries, great size ranges. That's all people want, especially in the EV world. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you have subscribed to our channel. Make sure you leave a comment below and let us know what you think of the Marvel Ore or other. Have you bought one? Are you thinking about something else? What are your concerns? What are you most excited about? Make sure you like the button. You've been watching EV Platform.
Thanks for watching.